going on, guys? Mega Geek back with another video. Today we're taking a look at our Witch Doctor, and I've had this build for a while, and I thought I did a video on it, and apparently I didn't. So here we are. We're going to be covering the Jade Harvester Witch Doctor build. So this build is really neat. It's really unique compared to a lot of other builds. Essentially, the bonuses are you cast your damage over time or dot skills, and then you run in, consume them all at once with Soul Harvest, and then you start the process over. But you're dealing massive damage while you're doing that. So let's go over the gear first. You're going to need a Sacred Harvester. This is for overall damage and toughness. You can either have it here or in the cube, either way. I've just got it right here. And of course we're going to have a green critical hit damage gem in that, and then your offhand is I like to use Vile Hive. Locust Swarm gains the effect of Pestilence Rune and deals 49% increased damage. So you're gaining damage there, and the Pestilence Rune, if we go in, you can see Locust Swarm has a 100% chance to jump to 2 additional targets, so it spreads really fast. So that's going to come in handy with our bonus from our Ring of Emptiness, which is another ring you're going to be using, and that bonus is you deal 276%, or if you get a good enough roll, 300%, or up to 300% increased damage to enemies affected by both your Haunt and your Locust Swarm. So that really is a massive boost of damage once you get your Haunt and your Locust Swarm on a target. And then the belts we're going to be using, I am just using the Haunting Girdle. Haunt releases 1 extra spirit. Here you can see as I cast 2 spirits come out. Main reason for that is just to get Haunt on more enemies at quicker, especially if we're in big groups, because we want this bonus to be procced here. We want this bonus to take effect, and you have to have both of them on there. So it's really just a quicker way to get Haunt on all of them. There are other options for your belt, but this is the option that I've chosen today. As for the other ring, you're going to go with the Endless Walk bonus. The ring is the Compass Rose, and then of course the amulet is the Traveler's Pledge. For the bracers, you're going to be using more than likely the Lacumba's Ornament. Reduce all damage taken by 6% for each stack of Soul Harvest that you have. So that's going to come in really handy, and it's going to couple really well with our Sacred Harvester. So that's 60% increased damage because our Soul Harvest now stacks up to 10 times. On to the actual set gear. You're going to need all 6 pieces of the Jade Harvester set. As you can see, the 2-piece set bonus when Haunt lands on an enemy already affected by Haunt instantly deals 120 seconds worth of Haunt. So if you're casting Haunt and then you cast it again, if there are no other enemies around, that second cast of Haunt will continue to hit and stay on that target, but it's also going to deal 120 seconds worth of its damage, which you can see is pretty massive looking at the damage it deals there. The 4-set bonus is Soul Harvest gains the effect of every rune, which is super nice, and has its cooldown reduced by 1 second every time you cast Haunt or Locust Swarm. So big boost there to cooldown reduction to the main damage dealer on this build. And then the 6-piece set, Soul Harvest consumes your damage over time effects on enemies, instantly dealing 300 seconds worth of the remaining damage. So that's 300 seconds worth of the remaining damage of Haunt and Locust Swarm. And again, I come back to our Ring of Emptiness. That damage is going to be increased by 276% if the enemies are affected by both Haunt and Locust Swarm. So that is the gear. I've got intelligence gems in there, and then I'm using a vitality gem in my helmet, just mainly a royal amethyst. Yeah. just mainly for life, because you don't need cooldown reduction with this build. You can see my cooldown reduction is 10%. You're mainly getting your cooldown reduction from the bonus set here, because your main damage dealer is Soul Harvest, with Haunt coming in second, and Soul Harvest's cooldown is being reduced every time you cast Haunt. So when you're not dealing damage with Soul Harvest, you're going to be just constantly casting Haunt and either dealing damage to 1 or 2 targets or stacking up Haunt stacks on many different targets, and then you'll run in and blast them with Soul Harvest, consume them, and start the process all over. So we'll go into the skills now, and our first skill, I've got it on my left click, so I am using the scroll wheel to move. It just makes things easier in this case. Where are we? Yeah, skills. Haunt, we're using Poison Spirit. Haunted enemies take 20% more damage from your attacks. So we are using Poison Spirit there. Locust Swarm, we are using Cloud of Insects, so enemies affected deal reduced damage as well, which is really nice. And remember, we also have the Pestilence rune active because of our side, because of our offhand. And then we're using Spirit Walk Jaunt. You can use a couple of different runes for this. I'm just using Jaunt just because it's kind of it comes in handy to have that increased movement speed and get out of fights a little bit faster. You can also use Spirit Walk to get in the middle of a big fight, because we're not using let me see, what are they called? We're not using, yeah, we're not using illusory boots, so we can't move through enemies. So sometimes if you want to get right in the middle of a pack to absorb them all, you can hit this, absorb, and run out. So that extra second on there really does make a difference. We are also using Horrify with the Frightening Aspect rune just to boost our toughness overall. And we are using Piranha's Piranado because this is just fantastic for grouping enemies, plus it increases our damage to the enemies. And then we're using Soul Harvest Languish, which increases our armor by 10% per harvested enemy and also reduces their movement speed. So another big boost, but it doesn't really matter which one of these you have, because Soul Harvest gains all of the runes anyways from our set bonus, from our 4-piece set bonus. So it doesn't really matter. We are using we're using Languish for the cold. I should actually probably have it on Swallow Your Soul to deal poison damage. I've got cold damage on here somewhere, but I wasn't thinking about that beforehand. Where is it? Yeah, because this is poison damage, or no, that's physical damage. But it's also doing poison damage because of that. So, yeah, we want poison damage, definitely. So do poison damage and ignore cold skills there. Have poison damage on there as well, unless I'm overthinking it at the moment, and then you guys will tell me in the comments if I've made a mistake. Yeah, that's what it looks like right now. Anyways, on to the passive skills. We're going to be using Grave Injustice. So every time we kill something, we're going to gain life and mana back and reduce every one of our cooldowns by 1 second. And with the immense damage that we're going to be doing, going in and poof, absorbing a lot of enemies, that's going to get rid of a lot of cooldowns. So more cooldown reduction from that, and then the cooldown reduction coming from our set bonus. This, like I said, this, you just don't really need that much cooldown reduction on this set. And then we're going to be using Spirit Vessel just to kind of cheat death once, and Confidence Ritual to deal more damage to enemies that are close to us, because that's going to be the main way we're dealing damage is going to be in a small group around us. And then Creeping Death for our Haunt, Locust Swarm, and damage amplification from Piranhas lasts almost forever. Paragon points, you're going to put a lot into intelligence. You're definitely going to want movement speed. You can max out mana if you want. I've got mana maxed here, but I'm actually gonna put those 200 into vitality just to get a little bit more vitality, because this isn't a very mana heavy build. you'll see when we get into the battle. Let's get back to Paragon points. You'll see that it's not very mana heavy. And then of course you're going to want critical hit chance, damage, and then either attack speed and then cooldown reduction after that. Either one's going to work. Attack speed does affect how fast you cast your haunt, so that's kind of nice. But a little bit of cooldown reduction is still always nice. And then you're going to want resist all, life, armor, and life regeneration. And then life per hit. This is kind of give and take, I guess. Either life per hit and then probably area damage, because like I said, it's not really mana heavy. And then resource cost reduction, and then gold find. And then in the cube, I am using a wormwood for now. That way Locust Swarm automatically casts itself on everything around me. If you choose to go with the furnace, which is a lot more damage, and you almost have to do in higher greater rifts, this Locust Swarm is a fairly mana heavy cast. You can see I can only cast it 3 times, so the build does become a little more mana heavy if you get rid of wormwood and go with furnace, so just keep that in mind. And then you're also going to want whatever that is, I can't pronounce that, but Locust Swarm and Haunt now deal their damage in half of the normal duration, so it really just amps up your damage as well, which is really nice. And then I'm also using a Unity here for reduced damage right now. There's again, when you get into higher greater rifts, you're probably going to want a ring, an element ring, ring of the elements, whatever it's called. Yeah, just to really up your damage overall. But that's pretty much the build. I don't have this stuff super optimized, so we're not going to be able to run something super high. I found 65 to be kind of the sweet spot with this build. You can certainly run, I've seen people run you know, somewhere in the 90s with it, but you're going to have, you know, all your augments on here, and you're going to have all ancient gear, so I only have a couple of pieces of ancient gear. Yeah, just my boots and my gloves. But here's the stats if you guys want to see them as well. I've got pretty high critical hit chance, and my critical hit damage is kind of low. I could bump that up somewhere if I really wanted to. Get rid of a little bit of the critical hit chance and add some damage, because it's not really a critical hit chance reliant build. And then I've got a pretty decent amount of area damage on here, and really quick, let me see if I can get poison damage on here. We'll just try a couple of times because I don't want to waste a lot of time here. It's not the point of the video. Of course, you can fast forward as well. And you can see this is starting to get expensive. Come on. Well, if we don't get poison damage in the next 3 tries, 1, 2, last try. Oh, there it is. Only 16%, but at least we got it on there. So yeah, we are going to go into a Greater Rift 65, and your cast order, you're not really going to have to cast Locust Swarm because of the wormwood that's in the cube, like I said. So really, you're just going to run in. This is going to automatically be casting. You're going to cast Piranhas to start grouping them up, and then you're going to cast Haunt, probably depending on which belt you're using, at least 4 times, if not more, and then run in and hit Haunt really quick to gain the armor damage, or the armor boost or reduce damage, and then you're going to cast Soul Harvest, and then whatever's left you're going to cast Piranhas again, group them back up, and do the whole process all over again. Real quick, I'll go over my Enchantress. Nothing really special about her. She's using a Maximus for now. I don't really have her decked out with anything, because I haven't really focused on this guy as much, but she does have the other Unity on, and then she does also have an Oculus ring, and of course she has her legendary Enchantress Focus, where she cannot die. So, and she can also group enemies with the S of Johann. So kind of nice there. Skills don't really matter at this point too much. But let's jump on in and see what we can do. And you can see our wormwood doing its job, and then we'll go ahead and cast that and then run in, and I hit the wrong button. There we go, and now all the enemies just die. So we're going to do that, cast our haunt a bunch of times. Now if I'm not using haunt as much to fear them as I am just for the armor bonus. You can use it for either way later on, but what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Let me keep going immune here. When Soul Harvest is down, you still want to be casting haunt constantly, because that's still doing a good amount of damage because of the two-piece set. It's not as much damage as as Soul Harvest, but it's certainly still nothing to stick at. And with your cooldowns, like I said, with your cooldowns in this build, feel free to cast things whenever you need to, because when you're killing enemies, you're gonna be reducing your cooldown. So Piranado, cast Haunt a bunch of times, run in, Horrify, and absorb them all, and they all die. I keep in mind Haunt does spread to other enemies when they die, so if they're kind of in close proximity, you don't have to worry about stacking up Haunt again before you cast it. You can see Haunt is spreading to some of them, but you can see my Soul Harvest as well will not absorb and kill all enemies if both Haunt and Locust Swarm aren't on there, because that's where the big damage amplification comes from. And I'm probably going the wrong way. Well, maybe not. And no fear if you don't kill everything right away and your Soul Harvest doesn't reset, because as you're casting Haunt constantly and applying more Haunt stacks to everyone all around, you are also cooling down your Soul Harvest, and everything dies. You can watch the health go down as it consumes. There, I'm just kind of standing here and spamming Haunt. And a nice shield shrine. And it doesn't look like that's the way to go. Here we are, floor 2. And there they are. You get all your stacks of Haunt on there, you get your Locust Swarm on there. And they all die. Pop. And this build clears trash pretty fast, so if you've got good density like this, feel free to just stop and go ahead and clear everything, because it's not going to take you very long. Now in higher, greater rifts, it could become more of an issue. And there you can see I used my spirit walk just to get in and out. Your spirit walk is great if you get trapped behind a waller or something like that as well. And as you can see, I'm just using the mouse wheel to move around. You can set that in the options, in the gameplay options. It's really easy. If you guys don't know how to set it, let me know and I will show you, but I probably won't remember by the time this video is over. So and if you get in a pickle, just use your spirit walk and get out. And you'll have to excuse the sniffling again. Allergies as usual. And you can see your Piranado comes in really handy. Just kind of cast it in the middle of a big group, and then it kind of holds them there for a minute, allows you to just start casting Haunt left and right. And you can see Haunt on its own does pretty decent damage. When your Soul Harvest is down, you can just keep casting Haunt, and it'll just keep doing damage, chipping away while your Soul Harvest gets ready to come off cooldown. If you do have enough enemies grouped that it completely cools down your skills, feel free to just run back in and hit them again without worrying about recasting Haunt, because like I said, Haunt will go to other enemies after they die. Let's get down here. Oh yeah, there's a big group. Alright, we'll just spam Haunt a bunch of times. Now there's a couple of abilities as well that allow Haunt to stack even more times, or shoot out more casts of Haunt. Feel free to use those if you want. Try whatever you like. It's nice that we can still cast Haunt and do damage to a Rift Guardian such as this, because that poison really hurts. So if you can stand back, woo! Stand back and chip away at his health while your other things come off cooldown. And that's great. He keeps disappearing. And we were just saved by our passive, thankfully. hopefully we can just kill him from here. Alright. So anyways, guys, that is the Jade Harvester build for the Witch Doctor. It's a really unique build. If you haven't tried it and you have a Witch Doctor, I recommend going for the gear and trying it. It's a lot of fun. It can be tricky, especially at higher greater rifts, when you have to get rid of your wormwood in the cube and sub it out for a furnace or something like that. Eventually you also need to dump the unity for some more damage as well, which means you really need to work on your toughness. But that's for the higher greater rifts. This is just kind of the overall main farming version. Of course, there's other things you can sub out. If you guys play this build, let me know in the comments, and let me know any tips and tricks you may have. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and a comment down below, and subscribe, guys, if you want to see more. Thanks, and more good stuff to come.